Okay. And we have the rosters in the chat. Is that right, George?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And all right, it appears we're live streaming.
Okay, great. All right. To the competitors and I guess the judges as well, as a reminder, there are no recesses allowed, so we'll come through this completely. Of course, if there's some sort of emergency, please let us know, and safety emergency, and then we can deal with that. And to a reminder for the coaches, if there are any disputes that arise pursuant to the rule, follow the rules regarding the dispute. Same for the competitors. For the teams, keep in mind that compliance with the problem and going outside the problem will be considered when scoring. Lead counsel for the plaintiff, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and the rest of your team.
I'm Shin Sachs for the plaintiff. I will be doing the opening, the direct of Dr. Rogers, and the cross of Dr. Williams.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ashley Dunn, and I'm also an attorney for the plaintiff. I will be doing the direct of Skylar Weirs, the cross-examination of Skylar Weirs, and the closing.
Very well. Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Lisa Valna. I'm an attorney for the plaintiff. I will be doing the direct examination of Carson Durst and the cross-examination of Blake Dockport.
Thank you. Okay, and for the defense?
Yes, good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury and opposing counsel. My name is Elwood Shefflin. Today, I'll be doing our pretrial matters as well as performing the cross-examination of Dr. Casey Rogers and the direct examination of Dr. Devin Williams. May my co-counsel introduce themselves?
Yes.
Good afternoon. I am Sierra Bono, and I will be performing the opening statement, the direct examination of Skylar Weirs, and the cross-examination of Dakota Weirs.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury. My name is Abby Miller, and I'll be performing the direct examination of Blake Dockport, the cross-examination of Carson Durst, as well as our closing argument.
Thank you. Okay, I believe that's everyone.
And Your Honor, we have witnesses to introduce, and I believe the plaintiff does as well. Permission to go through all of those introductions?
Yeah, let's start with the plaintiffs first, and then we'll come back to the defense.
Great, thank you, Your Honor.
Mind introducing their witnesses?
I can start off. Hi, my name is Jada Friedman, and I will be playing Dr. Casey Rogers today.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sophia Suisa, and I'll be playing Dakota Weirs today.
Thank you. All right, any other introductions? Okay, for the defense.
Hello, my name is Ellie Hoffman, and I will be playing Dr. Devin Williams.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Curtis Anderson, and I will be playing Skylar Weirs.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Layla Reyes, and I will be playing the role of Blake Dockport.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Raven Chamberlain, and I will be the timekeeper for defense today.
Okay. Do we also have a timekeeper for plaintiffs? I see head nods. Yes.
Your Honor, I just wanted to let you know we are experiencing technical difficulties with one of our witnesses. Her microphone is not working currently, so she was unable to introduce herself, but we are getting that fixed.
Okay. I saw her screen light up, so I figured
Okay.
that was. Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate that. I'm assuming that's somebody who's later in the trial and that you guys are working on that. Okay, good. The joy of technology. You guys will be okay. Okay, moving on. You know, as you all know, professionalism and following the code of ethics is a very big part of what we do as attorneys and as a part of this competition. So we'll start off with the oaths. First, with regard to the team members, if you could all turn on your videos and raise your right hands. Okay. Team members, and I'll have you turn on your microphones as well. Do you promise that the presentation you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
Yes, sir.
I do.
Okay. And now we'll have the witnesses come into camera. And same for you all. If you'll raise your right hands, please. Witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition?
I do.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Are there any gallery members? Or are they just watching by video? Does either team have a gallery member or people watching off camera?
We do. Our non-participating team members are watching in another room.
Okay. So I'll have those people, gallery members, including teachers and attorney coaches, family members and friends, raise your right hands as well. Do you promise to represent yourselves as a positive role models and to behave in a manner that exemplifies ethical and professional sportsmanship during and after this mock trial round? If you do, say, I do. Okay. And then finally, the scoring panelists, if you all will raise your right hands. Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition? If you do, say, I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you. All right. So I believe we're ready to proceed. Is the plaintiff ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
And is the defense ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Any other issues that we need to resolve before we begin the trial?
Your Honor, the plaintiff has a few preliminary matters.
Okay, please.
First, we request the permission for our attorneys to either sit or stand while performing direct and cross examinations according to the space that they're in.
Yeah, that's fine. Given the fact that we're doing this by Zoom, whatever works best for you all, given where you're located and your technology, would be fine.
Additionally, Your Honor, we request that we assume that both counsels already have copies of the exhibits, and therefore the timekeeper does not need to screen share to display them.
That's fine with me. Is there an objection from the other side regarding that?
There is, Your Honor. We would request that our co-counsel would be allowed to screen share exhibits. If you'd like, we can, instead of pausing for the co-counsel to screen share, simply continue on with the testimony and allow the jury to have easier access to those exhibits when they're pertinent to the trial.
Yeah, I think we can presume safely that the witnesses have the exhibits, but for the sake of, your judges following along, probably a good idea to do screen shares. If you don't want to, that'll be your decision.
One more, we just request that for both counsels, unless you are the timekeeper, an attorney examining a witness, or witness being examined, that you keep your cameras off just for the sake of our Wi-Fi.
Yep, that'll be one of the things that I mentioned when we start, that we need to preserve the bandwidth so that we don't get glitches or miss things. So we'll state that probably at the beginning of every single witness. Thank you.
That is all for the plaintiffs. Thank you, Your Honor.
Any preliminary matters for the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. We have 6 preliminary matters.
Okay, go ahead.
First of all, we would ask that everything afforded to the plaintiff would also be afforded to us.
What do you mean?
The permission for our witnesses to sit or stand.
Oh, yeah, anything that we've allowed for the plaintiffs applies equally to the defense.
All right, just making sure. In addition, we would request that co-counsel be allowed to screen share our exhibits rather than a timekeeper.
That's fine.
We would request that we can pause the clock for any technical issues that would stop the entire team from performing pursuant to the rules of competition.
That's fine.
We would request, we'd like to make sure that the jury all has access to their jury instructions.
I presume that everybody has copies of the packets that they're provided.
And that the court has access to all of its prior rulings on this case.
Yes.
And lastly, we'd just like to inform the court that we're working from the same courthouse. That means we have one station, this one here, for attorneys who are conducting directs or crosses, and one station for our witnesses who are testifying. We would ask to be afforded an extra amount of time to change our names to reflect who is currently at the station, rather than a generic name like Toby Attorney, which is what it says right now.
Yeah, we can pause to do that, but let's be quick about it.
We will.
Okay. Any other matters that we need to take up before we start the trial?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. For the plaintiff, do you have an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And is your name reflected accurately there on your screen?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Are you ready to proceed?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Opening statement for the plaintiffs.
Thank you. Your Honor and members of the jury, I'm Shannon Sachs, and I'm representing Dakota Weirs in this case. We are here because of Dakota Weirs, a young girl who innocently took on a job that would ultimately give her cancer. Dakota Weirs is a highly active member of the community. She was always the first to join her school clubs and loved helping the homeless shelters in her area. Dakota dedicated her time to her music. When she was only 14 years old, Dakota began working for Haven Landscapings, where she used a fertilizer products from a company called Lush Fertilizers. She worked with Lush Fertilizer products for a long time, but unfortunately, after 4 years of employment, she started to notice a steady decline in her health. Her symptoms worsened over time until she could no longer do many of the physical tasks that she loved without being in pain. Now, during a time that Dakota was supposed to be having fun with her friends and hearing back from colleges, she instead received a very different kind of news. She was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, an environmental cancer, and just like that, her life was flipped on its head. Dakota suffered immensely. Her job, her passion, her hopes for college were all but destroyed. She lost everything, and she went through so much pain, both mentally and physically, at only 18 years old. However, in the following months, some new information came to light. Leaked documents showing that Jufo, a harmful chemical, was found in fertilizer products. Jufo is known to cause non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and Lush Fertilizer knew of this fact and hid it from the public. Lush Fertilizers created a product that causes cancer, and they hid it, and they buried it. Members of the jury, today you will hear the defense give their side of the story. They will try to tell you that Jufo is not as harmful as it may seem. However, this argument fails when you consider the research done by professionals. Real and undeniable science, as you will hear about today, has proven that Jufo is a dangerous and cancer-causing chemical that no one should handle without extensive protection. The defense will also try to claim that they wanted their users to be safe and they took all the precautions to make that happen. However, the evidence will show that they incorporated Jufo in their products despite knowing about its dangers. On top of that, the evidence will show that Lush Fertilizer actually decided not to take the measures necessary to reduce the harmful effects of Jufo because of how costly it would be. To them, the risk of cancer is worth saving a few dollars. And above all, Your Honor and members of the jury, the defense may try to tell you that they care for Dakota and that they are sorry for her condition. However, sorry doesn't cure Dakota's cancer. Sorry doesn't discount many experts' research on the effects of the cancer-causing agent Jufo, and sorry doesn't undo the fact that Lush Fertilizers knowingly included Jufo in their products. We ask you to pay close attention to 3 particular witnesses today: Dakota Weirs, Carson Durst, and Dr. Casey Rogers. Dakota will shed light on her experience through her time working with Lush Fertilizer products, as well as what happened as she found out about her illness. Carson Durst, the lead product developer for Tara's research and development team, will then give us an inside view of what her time was like working with Lush Fertilizers. This testimony will prove that Lush Fertilizers did not have the care and consideration for their users' safety as they promised. And Dr. Casey Rogers will then provide an expert's description on the properties of Jufo, which will show the dangers of the chemical and will solidify our understanding of the severity that this case carries. Now, on one side of this case, we see a large company, one that is too proud to admit that they were careless and negligent with the safety of their products. A company that chose profit over the well-being of their users. And on the other side, we see a girl who lost everything at their hands. And all she wants is to see that this company, Lush Fertilizers, is brought to justice. Your Honor and members of the jury, in an attempt to bring Dakota some solace, you will see by preponderance of the evidence that Lush Fertilizers has been negligent with their safety precautions and will rule in favor of the plaintiff. Thank you.
Thank you. Opening statement for the defense.
Yes, Your Honor. Is my timekeeper ready?
Do you need to change your name on there? Is that accurate?
That's accurate, Your Honor.
Opening for the defense.
Profits over people. Good afternoon, Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury. My name is Sierra Bono, and I, along with my co-counsel, Abby Miller and Elwood Shefflin, will be representing the defense. We thank you for being here today, and we ask you to look at this case through the lens of proof, not possibilities. We are here today to determine if Lush Fertilizer is negligent in Dakota Weir's claims. Doing so will require a preponderance of the evidence, which means it is more likely to be true than not true. Or in other words, today we are looking for proof, not possibilities. You have already heard the plaintiff tell the story of young Dakota Wires who is now suffering from the detrimental effects of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And they have told you how Dakota Wears believes that Lush Fertilizer is at fault for this awful illness. But ladies and gentlemen, Lush is not at fault. Lush has and will always be a company that strives for environmental excellence. To begin today, the plaintiff will call their 3 witnesses to the stand: Dr. Casey Rogers, Carson Durst, and Dakota Wears. Dr. Casey Rogers will tell you about a study they conducted and how it shows a possible link between non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and DRUFO. But not only has this study not been peer-reviewed, it also hasn't been proven. Next, Carson Durst will take the stand and tell you all about their time at Lush. And they will tell you that while at their short time as an intern at Lush, they found a study that connected a small part within DRUFO to carcinogens within rats. But yet again, this study hasn't been proven. But they will also testify today to a study done internally within Lush that showed that DRUFO was as safe, if not safer, than the government requires. Finally, Dakota Wears will take the stand and tell you about their time at Haven Landscaping. They will tell you that while working at Haven, they chose not to wear the correct protective gear that was recommended not only by their boss, but also Lush Fertilizer. They will also tell you that they don't know what caused their cancer. Lush causing their cancer is just a possibility. We, the defense, ask you to listen in to the plaintiff witness's testimony today and hear all the times they use words like I think, maybe, possibly, could. We are here today because of possibilities, possible studies, possible risks, and a possible cause. Next, we, the defense, will call our 3 witnesses to the stand: Dr. Devin Williams, Skylar Wears, and Blake Doncourt. Dr. Devin Williams will tell you that the data and the proven research shows that DRUFO is a safe product. They will also shed even more light onto all the possibilities within Casey Rogers' study. Next, Skylar Wears will take the stand and tell you that all of the studies and all their research has shown that DRUFO has proven benefits, not only for our environment, but also for its users. They will also discuss the other harmful fertilizers and chemicals Dakota used while on the job. Finally, Blake Doncourt will take the stand and tell you that how they built their company from the ground up, and how Lush has and will always be a company that strives for environmental excellence, and that they never would have put a product on the market if they knew, if there was proof that it would have hurt their users. We, the defense, will provide you with hard proof, proven benefits, proven studies, and proven environmentalists. You will see today through proof, not possibilities, that Lush Fertilizer is not negligent. We, the defense, ask you to see all the proof behind the studies and statements of the defense and look past the possibilities provided by the plaintiff. Thank you.
All right, plaintiff, you can call your first witness.
The plaintiff would like to call Dakota Weirs to the stand.
Okay. Dakota Weirs. All right, raise your right hand. You swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth.
Yes.
Does everybody have their screen name set up properly?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Dunn, you may inquire.
Good afternoon, Ms. Weirs. Will you please tell the jury a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm 20 years old, first of all, and well, in high school, I was quite active in the community. I was in National Honor Society, and I also love to volunteer.
Do you have any hobbies, Ms. Weirs?
I do, actually. I play the piano.
And where did this interest begin in the piano?
Well, it all started when my grandfather, who was an excellent pianist, I saw him play for the first time, and I was quite young then, but when he passed away, I took a liking to it.
And did you ever pursue piano?
I did. I became the best in the country. I mean, people from all around came to watch me.
And did you ever think about college?
I did. I actually got into Juilliard. I mean, only the top best 7 get in.
Now, I want to talk about your employment history for a moment. Did you work, Ms. Weirs?
I did.
And where did you decide to work?
I worked at Haven Landscaping.
And why did you decide to work at Haven Landscaping?
Well, I quite love the nature. I mean, who wouldn't? The fresh air, the mountains.
What type of work did you typically do while at this landscaping company?
Well, when I joined, I was really young, so I could not work any of the machinery, so they put me on the fertilizer.
And what type of clothing did you typically wear?
Short sleeve shirt and shorts.
And were you ever reprimanded for wearing that?
Nope.
Now, I want to touch back on your piano playing for a moment. Are you still planning on attending Juilliard for piano?
Unfortunately, no, I can't.
And why is that?
I got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Can you tell me what non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is?
It's a cancer.
And what were your symptoms with this cancer?
Well, I mean, I got a swollen abdomen even though I was eating. I mean, I could not sit on anything. My hands would swell. I mean, I would get headaches, fevers, everything. It was just the worst.
Now, what was the process like coming to this diagnosis?
It was horrible. I mean, even before I even got diagnosed, my medical bills were racking up and it took forever. And finally I got diagnosed.
And what were you told about your recovery from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
I have little to none recovery.
And how did these symptoms fare with your piano playing?
I couldn't sit on the bench anymore. I would get bruises and I couldn't play any concerto with my hands.
And the loss of this piano playing, how did that affect you?
It was horrible. I felt like I lost my grandfather over again, and the one thing I truly loved is gone.
Now, can you please tell me what occurred when you made the connection between your diagnosis and Lush fertilizer?
Well, I was sitting at home and I saw a news article about Drufo and cancer.
What did you proceed to do?
Well, I was curious if I used any of it at my old job, so I called my boss and he sent me a label of the Lush fertilizer that I used.
Your Honor, I would like to introduce Exhibit 1 for the record. Opposing counsel has a copy of Exhibit 1 already. Now, Ms. Weirs, if you could please refer to Exhibit 1.
Okay.
Do you recognize this, Ms. Weirs?
I do.
What is it?
It is the Lush fertilizer label my boss sent me.
How do you know?
It has the name Lush fertilizer on it.
And is it a fair and accurate representation of the Lush label that you used while working at Haven Landscaping?
It is.
Your Honor, I would like to move Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
One will be admitted.
Now, Ms. Weirs, when you received this label, what did you notice about it?
I noticed that it has Drufo on it.
And did you do any additional research after this discovery?
I did. I wanted to see if any other Lush fertilizer products had Drufo on it.
And what did you find?
I found a French label.
Your Honor, I would like to introduce Exhibit 2 for the record. Opposing counsel has a copy of Exhibit 2 already. Ms. Weirs, could you please refer to Exhibit 2?
Yes,
Do you recognize this?
I do.
And what is it?
It is the French label.
And how do you know?
It is in French and has an English translation.
And is it a fair and accurate representation of the French Lush label that you found?
It is.
Your Honor, I would like to move Exhibit 2 into evidence.
Any objection?
Objection, Rule 901, authentication.
Response?
It's the French label that she found. It was a preliminary matter that the trail of custody with the labels is not in dispute, and therefore we know it's the legitimate label.
Understood. Objection number 2, Exhibit 2 will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Weirs, when you found this French label, what stood out to you on it?
There was no Drufo.
And why did that stand out to you?
Because the American has a Drufo, but none of the United Nations have Drufo on them.
Now, I want to talk about your twin, Skylar Weirs, for a moment. Tell me about your relationship with her.
When we were younger, we were actually quite close. I mean, we loved each other. What twin wouldn't?
And does she have any hobbies?
She does. First of all, gambling is a big one of hers, but otherwise, she likes to write articles on UFOs and non-vaccinating.
And how has she reacted to your diagnosis?
She was upset. I mean, partly because my father would even pay her gambling debts
Objection,
anymore.
character evidence.
Response?
The witness is just testifying on her twin's relationship with her.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
This witness is testifying to certain character traits within Skylar Weirs, such as them being rather upset with their twin, which is by definition character evidence, and it's being used to show why Skylar is acting in the way they are currently.
Okay. Response, Ms. Dunn?
I can dismiss the question.
You're withdrawing the question?
Yes, I can withdraw the question.
Okay.
Now, Ms. Weirs, because you and Skylar are twins, were you ever concerned that she would develop the same diagnosis?
I was not.
Thank you, Dakota. That will be all, Your Honor.
Thank you. Pass the witness. Okay. Cross-examination, Ms. Bono?
Yes, Your Honor. Is my timekeeper ready? Ms. Weirs, you started working at 14
That is true.
at Haven Landscaping,
Yes.
and you worked there for about 4 years.
Yes.
And during that time, you were a pretty good employee.
Yes.
You were never fired.
No.
And at Haven, you had a boss.
Yes, I did.
And this boss had certain guidelines that he set.
Yes.
And one of these guidelines was that you should wear a mask.
Sure.
But even though your boss had told you this, you didn't wear a mask.
Nobody else was.
So is that a no?
Yes.
And you were also told to wear long sleeves.
Yes, but I also said nobody else was.
Weirs, I didn't ask you if you did. I'm about to get to that. And you didn't.
I did not.
And you were also told to wear pants, not shorts.
Yes.
And you didn't.
I did not.
And you were also told to wear gloves.
Yes.
And this was because you were spreading the fertilizer by hand.
Yes.
But you didn't wear these gloves.
I did wear the gloves.
You did wear the gloves?
Yes.
So, Ms. Weirs, you did wear the gloves that were recommended to you.
Yes, I did.
Ms. Weirs, you wrote an affidavit in this case,
Yes.
and you were aware that you could change that at any time?
I was.
Your Honor, I'm asking co-counsel to share Dakota Weir's affidavit.
Okay.
Can co-counsel please scroll down to the bottom? Ms. Weirs, that's your signature at the end, correct?
That is.
If co-counsel could please scroll up to line 63 and 64, or line 64 and 65. Ms. Weirs, I'm going to ask you to read silently while I read aloud. We were also technically supposed to wear long sleeves, pants, and gloves when we used fertilizer, but it was summer and it was way too hot to do that. So Ms. Weirs, you did not wear gloves.
No, I did wear gloves. I just did not wear the long sleeves or pants.
It says in your affidavit that you were supposed to wear long sleeves, pants, and gloves, but you didn't.
But if you keep reading, it says pretty much everyone, including me, wore shorts and t-shirts. I
Ms.
wore
Weirs.
gloves.
My co-counsel can stop sharing now. Now, Ms. Weirs, you're diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma,
Yes.
and this means that you spend most of your days on the couch.
Yes, that does mean.
And one of those days when you were sitting on the couch, you saw a news article about Drufo.
Yes.
And after that, you had this epiphany. You realized you had used Lush fertilizer while at Haven.
Objection, Your Honor. The lawyer's testifying for the witness.
Response.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Please.
This is cross-examination. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm just asking this witness a question about what happened after they saw this news article.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Sure.
She stated that my witness had an epiphany. She cannot make that claim for the witness.
It's cross-examination. Objections overruled.
So, Ms. Weirs, after seeing this news article, you just had this epiphany. You realized that you had used Lush, so you contacted your old boss.
I had no idea that Lush had Drufo until I contacted my boss and asked him if there was anything I
Ms.
used
Weirs,
Drufo in it.
so you did contact your boss.
Yes, so I could figure out.
And after this, he provided you with a label from Lush.
Yes.
I will now ask co-counsel to screen share Exhibit 1 as it has already been entered into evidence. Now, Ms. Weirs, in Exhibit 1, can you see the area in all caps that says user safety recommendations?
Yes, I can.
And I'll now ask you to read along silently while I read aloud. Use of respirator or N95 face mask is recommended. And did I read that correctly?
Yes.
But as specified earlier, you didn't wear a face mask.
I did not.
And it also says, never mind. It also said that you should utilize protective clothing that covers exposed skin,
Yes.
but you didn't.
Objection asked and answered.
You can answer the question.
I did not use it except for I used gloves.
Now, so even though Lush and your boss recommended use of protective clothing, you didn't wear it?
No, but how was I supposed to know I was going to get cancer?
Ms. Weirs, that wasn't my question. You didn't wear protective clothing.
I did wear the gloves, but yes, I did not wear the long sleeves or pants.
We're moving on a little bit back to your work at Haven. You didn't just use Lush fertilizer.
No, I did not, but this was the only one that had Drufo in it and had a cause to cancer.
Ms. Weirs, you didn't just use Lush fertilizer.
I did not, but this was the only one that has.
Ms. Weirs, you used other fertilizers and chemicals.
Yes, but this one's the only one that causes cancer.
Ms.
Your
Weirs,
Honor, if you could direct the attorney to let the witness answer the question.
Ms. Bono, if you wouldn't mind letting the witness finish the answer before you start your next question. Thank you.
And Ms. Weirs, these fertilizers and chemicals had warnings on them.
Yes,
And these warnings recommended certain precautions.
sure.
And some instructed that you should wear a mask.
Yes, you could say that.
But you didn't.
Objection asked and answered once again.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
I did not wear a mask.
Thank you. And continuing on with your work at Haven, you guys stopped using Lush after your 3rd or 4th year.
I only worked at New Haven for 4 years.
But you guys did stop using Lush during your time at Haven.
Yes, but I used it for most all my time there.
Now, moving on to your cancer diagnosis, you don't know what caused your cancer.
No, because it is environmental, but I have links to know that it's probably Lush because it's the only one that I use that
Ms.
had
Weirs,
cancer.
that wasn't exactly my question. So that's a no. You don't know what caused your cancer.
No, I don't.
So Lush, out of all the other products you use, is just possibly what could have caused your cancer.
Is the one that has the most evidence leaning to it that says that it has
Miss-
cancer and has caused people cancer.
So Ms. Weirs, that's a yes. It's just a possibility.
Objection, the attorney is testifying.
Overruled. It's cross-examination. You can answer
So Ms.
the
Weirs,
question.
it's just a possibility that Lush caused your cancer.
No, I used a lot of other chemicals, but this one had the most significant cause of cancer.
Ms. Weirs, you don't know that Lush caused your cancer. You just believe it caused your cancer.
I don't just believe it caused my cancer.
You have no actual proof that it caused your cancer. It's just a possibility.
It's not just a possibility. It has the most other significant connection with cancer.
It just has a connect. Ms. Weirs, just to shorten this up, you don't know what caused your cancer.
No, but I have a
Thank you,
strong
Ms. Weirs.
possibility of it
Thank you, Your Honor.
causing
No
my
further
Lush.
questions.
For the plaintiff, redirect.
Ms. Weirs, you worked at Haven Landscaping for 4 years,
That's correct.
and during this time, you were consistently exposed to Lush fertilizer.
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Recross based on those questions.
Yes, Your Honor. You were exposed to other chemicals,
Yes, but I was most prominently exposed to Lush fertilizer.
but you were exposed to other chemicals.
Yes,
Thank you,
slightly.
Your Honor. No further questions.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Weirs, you can be excused. For the plaintiff, do you have any other witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to call Carson Durst to the stand.
Okay, and can you pronounce your last name for me, please?
Valina.
Elena. Just want to make sure I get it right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And I believe the defense, or you're not Miss Bono, if you wouldn't mind changing the screen name, which looks like you're trying to do.
Okay, it
Miller?
should be changed now. Yes, exactly. Thank you for your patience, Your Honor.
Not at all. Thank you for changing that so we know who we're scoring. Okay, for the plaintiff, would you like to call your witness?
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to call Miss Carson Durst to the stand.
Okay. Ms. Durst, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? I can see your lips moving, but we're not able to hear you. Is this the same witness that we're having trouble with the audio previously?
Yes,
Okay.
Your Honor.
All right. Do we have another witness that we can call, pass this witness and come back to, or do you have another solution? Looks like she might be trying to call in on audio. Take your time.
Your Honor, if it would be all right, could we please proceed with another witness?
That would be fine. If you want to take a moment and get this witness's technology straightened out, we can move on to the next witness and come back. Obviously, you won't be penalized for changing your order of proof on that. This is what happens in the Zoom world.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
So now we would like to call Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand instead.
Okay, that's Miss, is it Sachs?
Hi. No, we're doing analysis.
Okay, and for Dr. Casey Rogers, and then I believe the defense is changing the screen.
That should be correct, Your Honor.
Okay, and is it Mr. Shefflin for the defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, great. All right, if the plaintiff would call their next witness.
Okay, so we now call Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand.
Okay, Dr. Rogers, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Sachs, you can inquire.
Okay. Hello, Dr. Rogers. Can you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Hi, my name is Dr. Casey Rogers. That's Rogers.
And Dr. Rogers, could you tell us about your educational background?
Well, I have a PhD in agriculture and entomology from University of California, Berkeley, as well as a bachelor's in science in agriculture and chemistry from Colorado State University.
And what about your professional background?
Before my PhD, I was a research analyst for a multinational major chemical company, and currently I'm a professor in the horticulture and entomology departments at Berkeley.
And how long have you been at that job?
About 25 years.
And at this time, I would like to ask you to turn to Exhibit 6. As previously stipulated, all parties and witnesses should have access to this exhibit. Do you recognize this?
I do.
And what is it?
It's my resume.
How do you know?
I worked on it personally, and my name is at the top.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of the resume you prepared prior to today's hearing?
It is.
At this time, I would like to move Exhibit 6 into evidence.
Any objection?
I do have an objection, Your Honor. This exhibit is hearsay.
Okay, response?
The definition of hearsay is a statement made outside of court. However, this is not. Our witness is also right here. If there is any issues with this exhibit, opposing counsel may also question this witness.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
This curriculum vitae was made outside of court. Fundamentally, it isn't an in-court statement. If my opposing counsel would like to get in this evidence here, I would request that they simply ask their witness questions and let them bring that evidence in court instead of through an out-of-court statement like this curriculum vitae.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shefflin. To help facilitate the testimony, move things along, Exhibit 6 will be admitted.
Thank you. So, Dr. Rogers, I would like to talk to you about your published works. Do you have any publications directly related to the use of Drupo?
I do, 4.
And could you elaborate on this published work?
Well, my published works focus in on pesticides and the harmful effects of them on the body.
And has any of your work been peer reviewed?
It hasn't. Well, my Drupo study hasn't, but my other works have been.
And do you believe that your testimony and the study you conducted will be helpful in assisting the judge or jury understand the facts of this case?
Absolutely.
And Your Honor, at this time, I now tender this witness as an expert in the field of agriculture and entomology.
Any objection or voir dire?
Yes, may I conduct a voir dire, Your Honor?
Please.
Could I get a time check before I start that? Wonderful. I'll start that now then. Now, you've done a lot of studies on Drupo,
I have.
a lot of reviewing data,
That's right.
especially on human exposure to Drupo.
That's also correct.
And you've published a lot of those studies,
I have.
but never anything hands-on.
Well, this was hands-on.
I mean, in your published works that you've testified to.
Could you clarify that for me?
You haven't published any hands-on studies to do with Drupo.
Well, no, this one wasn't.
And let's move on past your experience and talk about your education. Now, your bachelor's degree, that's in agriculture and chemistry, right?
That's right.
And your PhD is in horticulture and entomology?
That's also correct.
That concludes my voir dire. Your Honor, I do object to this witness being an expert So far, we haven't heard any evidence to facilitate the idea that this witness would be able to have knowledge, experience, education, skill, or expertise in the area of hands-on toxicological studies. They haven't published anything. They weren't trained with toxicological studies. Because of this, I would ask that anything to do with a hands-on study on toxicology or the effect of chemicals on humans would be rationally based on the witness's perception instead of an opinion under Rule 702.
Thank
Your
you.
Honor, may I respond?
Please, Ms. Sachs.
Dr. Rogers here has gained a PhD in both agriculture and entomology, which is what we are trying to get her tendered as an expert in, which does complete fields in knowledge and education. And she has also been at her job for more than 25 years, which also completes the topic of experience.
Your
And
Honor, may I respond?
Ms. Sachs, were you done?
I was just going to say, because of that, she should be considered an expert under Rule of Evidence 702.
Okay. Mr. Shefflin, briefly.
I don't object to any of this witness's experience in horticulture, entomology, or chemistry. What I'm objecting to is to preclude expert testimony that has to do in the area of hands-on studies about the effect of chemicals on humans. I can address anything to do with horticulture and entomology on cross instead.
Thanks very much. The objection will be overruled. This witness will be received as an expert based on her education, training, and experience. Mr. Shefflin, I understand your objection and it's noted, but I believe it goes to the weight, not the admissibility. Please proceed.
Thank you. So Dr. Rogers, you said you worked with Drufo in the past. So how does it catch your attention in this case?
Honestly, it caught my attention as soon as it hit the market. Now, you see, Drufo was developed in 2003 by Lush's research and development team. It's a patented bonding agent in the fertilizer that keeps it preserved and intact. It contains nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, calcium, and iron. But what really caught my attention is that it's carcinogenic in rats.
And so what did you do after you found that out?
I conducted my own study. I gathered together a control group of people who have never been exposed to Drufo, people with occasional exposure and people with prolonged exposure, and I monitored their health over the years.
What did you conclude?
I found that people with occasional exposure were 5 times more likely to be diagnosed with cancer as people without exposure, and people with prolonged exposure were 10 times more likely to be diagnosed with cancer as people without exposure. Now, you see, these are endocrine and exocrine-based varieties of cancer, and that includes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
And did you ever replicate the study?
I didn't.
And why is that?
Well, the study that I conducted lasted a period of years, and with such a high risk of developing cancer after using this product, I found it unethical to replicate this and put more people through it.
And has your study ever been peer-reviewed?
It hasn't.
And why is that?
Peer review typically takes over a year, and with such a high risk, I wanted to get the word out as soon as possible.
And has the study been published?
It hasn't.
And why is that?
The same reason it hasn't been peer reviewed. It's too timely and I needed to get the word out ASAP.
So could you talk more about what you found out about non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in your studies?
Well, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is caused by the environment. It attacks the body's immune system, more specifically the white blood cells, also known as lymphocytes. It can start out small and grow slowly, but it can also be fast and aggressive, and it can start anywhere in the body
Objection,
that
Your
contains
Honor.
lymph tissue.
This is outside the scope of this witness's expertise. Would you like me to explain my objection?
Sure.
So far, this witness is an expert in horticulture, entomology, and the effect of chemicals on humans, but they aren't an expert in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma or any medical field that would allow them to give this highly technical information to the jury.
Okay, response?
Dr. Rogers conducted a study in which she used Drufo and saw how it affects humans, in which she was studying specifically non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, in which case she will need to know a lot about the condition in order to effectively do the study.
May I respond once more, Your Honor?
No, I think I have enough to rule on this. I understand that this witness can testify about the effects of the chemicals on the human body. I think that's what she's doing. I think your objection again goes to the weight, not the admissibility. Please proceed.
Thank you. So Dr. Rogers, did you find a correlation between exposure to Drufo and cancer in your study?
A crystal clear one.
But Lush Fertilizers has a large variety of products. How many of them actually contain Drufo?
Every single one of them, and I measured that using a mass spectrometer.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Cross-examination.
I do have a cross, Your Honor. First of all, I'd like to make sure my timekeepers are ready. Great. In that case, let's start off with the topic of protective gear. Now, you did a study on Drufo, right?
I did.
And as part of that study, you reviewed possible use of protective gear.
That's right.
You looked at correlation between exposure to Drufo and health,
That's also correct.
and you looked at protective gear that could stop that exposure to Drufo.
I did.
Now, after looking at that protective gear, you made a variety of recommendations for the use of the protective gear.
That's right.
And one of those recommendations is to wear a respirator or mask.
That's also correct.
Another one being to wear long pants.
Right.
And one more to wear long sleeves.
That's right.
So let's move on to the other part of your study from there. Now, this study had 3 main groups that you were studying, correct?
That's right.
One of which including people like farm workers.
That's correct.
Another one including people like casual gardeners.
Also correct.
And a control group with no exposure to the agricultural industry.
That's right.
Now, you compared these 3 groups only looking at Drufo.
That's right. Drufo was the main focus.
So let's talk a little bit more about that medical stuff, the exposure to chemicals. Now, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma can be caused by a variety of environmental toxins. Is that right?
That's right.
In fact, any foreign particles similar to Drufo or completely different from Drufo and damaged cells could cause the cancer.
That's also right.
Like pesticides?
That's correct.
In fact, pesticides specifically are known to be a carcinogen.
That's also right.
Just to be clear, carcinogen meaning that it causes cancer.
That's right.
And farm workers, this is a group of people that often use pesticides.
That's also true.
But you weren't looking at the use of pesticides, were you?
Technically, I was, because Drufo is a pesticide.
Now, I will re-ask my question. I wasn't really looking for information on Drufo specifically. You weren't looking at the correlation between the use of pesticides as a general chemical rather than one specifically, and cancer.
You could say that.
Your study focused exclusively on Drufo.
That's right.
So you weren't accounting for these other environmental factors.
There was no need to.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Okay, redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Rogers, have you published works on any fertilizers without Drufo?
I haven't. Well, my research I've done extensive research on this topic and chemicals that are in fertilizers, and my research has been widely accepted in litigations. So I do know what I'm talking about with this.
Thank you. No further questions.
Recross.
No recross, Your Honor.
Great. Thanks very much. Dr. Rogers can be excused. Does the plaintiff have any other witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to call Ms. Carson Durst to the stand.
Okay, do we have working audio?
Can you hear me now?
You got it. Good job. Okay, and just wait for the defense to change their name. Take your time.
Okay, Your Honor, thank you for your patience again. I'm ready to proceed.
Not at all. Thank you both for your flexibility on taking witnesses out of order. Ms. Helena, would you like to call your next witness?
Your Honor, I'd like to call Ms. Carson Durst to the stand.
Okay, Ms. Durst, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you give will be the truth?
Yes.
You may inquire.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the records?
My name is Carson Durst. Durst is D-U-R-S-T.
Thank you, Ms. Durst. So, Ms. Durst, where are you currently working?
Currently, I am lead product developer at Terrace Greenery.
And where did you work before Terrace?
I worked at Lush Fertilizer.
And what were your responsibilities at Lush?
I was an intern on the research and development team.
And when you began at Lush, did you sign any paperwork?
I'm sure I signed a lot of things.
Could one of those documents have been a non-compete agreement?
Yes, definitely.
So what was your relationship like with the Doncourt family?
Well, Blake Doncourt has a son, Charles, and actually he and I had met through traveling soccer. And I mean, at that point, we'd become inseparable, and I spent literally every second of almost every day with him.
Objection, Your Honor, lack of foundation. We have yet to hear about who the Don courts are. So just for the sake of clarifying for the jury, I'm objecting on the grounds of lack of foundation, just so the jury can understand who the Don courts are.
Response?
Blake Doncourt is the CEO of Lush, and
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to give me the background. I'm asking you to respond to the objection. I think what she's saying is that lack of foundation. Would you mind laying a little more foundation?
that I am just asking about the relationship of this intern at the time to the CEO of the company.
Great. Thanks very much. Go ahead and proceed with your examination.
So let me rephrase my question, Your Honor. Misters, could you please talk about your relationship with the Doncourt family?
Yes, Blake Doncourt, the CEO of Lush, has an oldest son, Charles Doncourt, who I basically grew up with. We played traveling soccer together, and we basically grew up together, and I became a part of their family. I had spent so much time with them.
And then after you finished your education, where did life take you?
I began working at Lush Fertilizer in 2003 as an intern on the research and development team.
And as you spent more time with Lush, were you promoted?
I was, yes.
Does Lush Fertilizers manufacture a fertilizer with a chemical compound known as Drufo?
They do.
And could you please tell us what Drufo is?
Drufo is a patented bonding agent that is used to preserve fertilizer.
And you were tasked with researching it?
Yes, I was. When I had began, the team was in the process of testing the safety of Drufo, and I personally was tasked with researching one specific chemical compound, where I had found a study from the UK that showed Drufo could be possibly carcinogenic in rats.
Your Honor, I would like to ask the witness to reference what has been marked as Exhibit 3. Opposing counsel has a copy of Exhibit 3.
I have it right here.
Thank you.
Misters, what is this?
This is the UK study in rats.
Do you recognize it?
I do, yes.
Is this a fair and accurate copy?
It is.
Your Honor, I would like to move to enter Exhibit 3 into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, I object on the grounds of hearsay.
Ms. Valena, your response?
This study is talking about the safety of Drufo, and that is what this entire case is about. And it also has lots of relevance, and with the pretrial motions, it has been admitted into as an exhibit.
Your Honor, if I may respond.
Please.
The prior rulings or the pretrial matters in this case did not qualify that the exhibits in this case are automatically admissible. As well, hearsay is anything that's an out-of-court statement being brought in for the truth of the matter asserted, which is what this statement is, regardless of its contents or its relevance to this case. So it still applies as hearsay.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Ms. Valena? Any further response?
This will be used in comparison to the study done by Lush.
Okay. Is this a government publication and report? Or do we know?
It is by the European Foundation of Oncology and Environmental Sciences.
Okay. Court will overrule the objection. You can proceed with your questioning.
Misters, could you please reference the column marked as methods?
Yes.
In the fourth paragraph, could you please tell me how long this study was?
This study was roughly 3 years, which is 147 weeks.
And what were the results of this study?
The results of this study showed that C3N09P, which is Drufo, could be linked to non-Hodgkin or specific lymphomas and leukemias. And since this study was roughly 3 years compared to the studies done at Lush, which were 1 month, may I add, this study is obviously going to be far more conclusive. And since this specific study was done by a third-party research lab and
Objection,
not done
Your Honor,
in-house.
improper lay opinion. This witness is testifying, comparing these two studies through opinions, but they have yet to be qualified as an expert in any kind of extensive research knowledge or the processes of studying chemicals. And so this is an improper lay opinion.
Response?
Your Honor, this witness was on the research and development team and tasked with researching the safety of Drufo and its possible carcinogens. And my witness has come across this study and used it to possibly determine whether Drufo is truly safe or not.
Your Honor, if I may respond.
Briefly.
I'm not objecting specifically on what Ms. Valena replied to there. I'm objecting on the comparison which Ms. Durst is doing between these two studies. We don't have any knowledge, or the foundation has yet to be laid to know that Ms. Durst has the expert opinion to know which study could show what. And so just because they were a member of the research and development team, that doesn't necessarily qualify them to give the opinion which they have been giving.
Understood. Thank you. Understand your objection. Again, I think it goes to the weight, not the admissibility. You can continue with your examination.
If I may rephrase my question. And so, Ms. Durst, what were the results of this study?
The results of this study showed that Drufo, the specific chemical compound, could be linked to lymphomas and leukemias. And if I may say again, 3 years is going to be far more conclusive than a 1-month study that is done in-house. And specifically, since this study was done by a third-party research lab, it is going to have far less chance of bias.
And what did you do with the results of this study as soon as you found it?
Actually, I had brought them to my superiors, and then after I was fragrantly ignored by them, I had brought it to Blake Doncourt, who at the time had also disregarded this. And since my colleagues had found out that I had brought this to people who were above them, they got angry at me and I was ostracized.
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation. This witness is testifying to the thoughts and internal processes of her coworkers when she does not have insight into their thoughts or their heads. And so she wouldn't know exactly their thought processes in the way that she is describing.
So your objection is a speculation?
Yes, Your Honor, it is.
Response?
I am just asking for a timeline of events. I'm not speculating on what happened.
Okay. Objection overruled. You can answer.
If I may rephrase my question, Ms. Durst, what happened after you brought these results to your superiors?
I was blatantly ignored by my colleagues who had obviously not taken my career into consideration. And since I was an intern at the time, I believe that they ignored me because of that. And since I had brought this to Blake Doncourt and they had found out about it, I was ostracized and given jobs nobody else wanted. And I realized that this was the beginning of the end at Lush Fertilizer for me.
And did you begin looking for new jobs?
I did, yes. I realized I had no future with Lush.
Was this a violation of your non-compete agreement?
It was, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Durst. No further questions.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor, but before I proceed, I would just ask for a time check. Okay, thank you. May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes, please inquire.
Okay. Ms. Durst, let's begin by discussing your relationship with Blake and the Doncourt family. Blake is the parent of one of your childhood best friends, yes?
Yes, he is.
And this friend is Charles?
Yes.
Okay. And Blake Doncourt is currently the CEO of Lush Fertilizer, as you clarified with opposing counsel previously, yes?
Yes.
Okay. And you and Charles attended university together?
We did.
Okay. And near the end of your time at university, you found yourself looking for a job?
Yes, as one usually does.
Okay. But by spring break of that year, you had no job offers lined up?
I mean, usually it's fine. It's hard to find jobs right out of college.
Yeah, that's okay. You don't need to explain it to me. Is that a no, you did not?
No, I did not have jobs lined up.
Yeah. Is that what you're
I
saying?
did not.
Okay. And so you confided in Charlie?
I did.
Okay, who expressed that he was sure that Blake could pull some strings for you if you applied for an internship at Lush?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Response?
Your Honor, this was a statement made by Charlie to Miss Durst. And so this is not speculation, as it's something that was openly said to Miss Durst.
Objection overruled. You can inquire.
Thank you. And Mr. So I'll just go ahead and re-ask my question. So Charlie expressed that he was sure that Blake could pull some strings for you if you applied for an internship at Lush.
I mean, I'm not sure exactly what he said, but maybe something along those lines.
Okay. And when you did apply, you ended up with the internship.
Yes.
Okay, despite having no relevant prior job experience.
Yeah, I had just gotten out of college.
Okay. But just to clarify, you had no relevant job experience going into your internship.
Sure.
Okay. Let's focus in on your employment at Lush now. You began your internship in June 2003?
Yep.
Okay. And in your position, you were tasked with a research assignment
Yes, I was.
surrounding Drufo.
Yes.
And as you've clarified previously, specifically one compound within the chemical bonding agent?
Yep.
Not the entire agent.
Not the entire agent. I was only an intern at the time.
Okay, but Drufo has many different components which make it up, yes?
Sure.
Okay, and this research assignment was part of a larger study.
Is that a question? Because
Yeah.
Yes.
It is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and this study was on Drufo?
Yep.
Okay, and it was conducted internally within Lush?
Yes, it was an in-house study.
Okay, and during that research assignment, you ultimately came across only one relevant study, yes?
Yes, that study was within rats.
Okay, let's talk about that study a little bit more. It was conducted by a lab in England, yes?
Yes, it was.
And this study showed no proof that Drufo was carcinogenic.
It showed a possible link between it. So yes, I mean,
But no
not
proof.
defined.
Okay. And the test subjects in this study were rats?
Rats are typically tested on before humans. So
Okay, but just to clarify, the test subjects were rats.
yes, they were.
Okay, and humans weren't even considered in this study, no?
It would be very unethical to test on humans.
That's not what I'm asking. I just want to clarify that humans weren't the test subjects in this study.
They were not. Like I just said, it was rats.
Okay, you wrote down the results of this study in your notebook as soon as you came across it?
I did, yes.
Okay, which was reviewed by your then manager, Jerry Langley?
Yes.
Okay. And it was combined with other employees' findings from around the same time, yes?
It was.
Okay, to create a periodic report,
Sure.
which went to your senior management.
Yep.
Okay, and not long after you wrote down the findings in your notebook, Lush announced that they'd be conducting another in-house study, yes?
Yes.
And it would be specifically looking for carcinogenic risks to humans within Drufo?
Yes, they were testing the safety of it.
Okay, and this study would be conducted in-house?
Yes.
Great. And the announcement of this study was shared with you and your coworkers in an email, yes?
Yes.
That came out in September
Your
2000.
Honor, objection.
What's your objection?
Lack of foundation. We never talked about this email at all in this testimony yet.
So they're saying outside the scope of your direct
Yes, sir.
response.
Your Honor, I don't believe that cross-examination has to fall within the bounds of direct examination. I think that only applies when it's redirect relating back to cross or recross relating to redirect. But also in terms of the lack of foundation objection, I'm attempting to lay the foundation to bring in this email. And so we can get further information on it from Mr. further in my line of questioning.
Thank you. Objection overruled. You can ask.
Thank you. And so this email came out in September 2003, Mr.
That's true, yes.
From Jerry Langley.
Yep.
Okay, I'll now ask my co-counsel to screen share Exhibit 4. Okay, Mr. Are you able to see this?
Yes, I am. I have a copy of it too.
Oh, great. Okay. So is this that email?
It is, yes.
Okay, now if you would read along silently as I read aloud the second paragraph of this email, and I'll also ask co-counsel to scroll down just a little bit so I can see that second paragraph. Okay, following our lab's June Drufo study, concerns have arisen regarding generalized findings of potential carcinogenic qualities identified in samples produced during a period early in the year. So we are reinitiating the study in the coming weeks with a fresh With fresh product samples, development engineers and lab techs are also invited to participate in briefings by senior management on target market positions and economic strategies planned for Drufo as the study refresh proceeds. Did I read that correctly, Ms. Durst?
You did.
Okay. And as we've discussed, this email essentially states that Lush would be conducting an in-house study on Drufo, yes?
Yes.
Looking for carcinogenic risks
Yes.
to humans.
Yes.
And this study was concluded in December 2003.
Yes, it was.
Okay, let's talk about December 2003 a little bit more. In that same month, Jerry Langley called a meeting to discuss the findings of this study.
That is true.
Where other managers were present. Okay, as well as Lush scientists.
Yes.
And soon after that meeting, you received a copy of the finalized study.
I did.
And the study specifically referenced the possibility of carcinogens in Drufo.
Yes.
But it said that, quote, on average, our statistics and our distribution is below what is required by law.
Is that a question?
Yes, is that correct? Is that what that said?
It is.
Okay, meaning that Drufo did not violate any government standards.
Yes. But the fact that it was a potential carcinogenic risk before should be concerning to anyone.
Okay, I'd just like to clarify your answer there. You're saying that it did not violate any government standards.
Did not.
Okay, surrounding carcinogen levels specifically.
Yep.
Okay, and a risk of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was not present anywhere in the report, no?
Not in that specific report.
Okay, but you claim to have brought up concerns around Drufo being potentially carcinogenic?
I did, yes.
And you say these concerns were never addressed?
No, they were blatantly ignored.
Despite all the research done by Lush that we just spent the last 5 minutes discussing?
Yep.
Okay, regardless though, you felt that your concerns weren't listened to?
They were not listened to, no.
Okay, that's not what I asked you. You felt that your concerns weren't listened to?
Ma'am, I just said that they were not listened to.
Okay, so that's how you felt, yes?
Sure.
Okay, and by 2005, you were motivated to leave Lush?
Yes, obviously. It was not a work environment that catered to the needs I had.
Okay, let's focus in on that motivation just a little bit. You realized that Terrace Greenery was hiring product development engineers.
Yes.
So you applied?
I did.
Knowing that Terrace is one of Lush's biggest competitors.
Yes.
Okay, and you got the job?
I did.
Okay, so in your current role, your job is essentially to create a product which could outperform Drufo, yes?
Yes.
Which, if that were true, if it did, that could hurt Lush Fertilizer, yes?
I'm not sure what you mean.
If the products and the profits of Terra's product.
Your Honor, speculation.
Response.
Your Honor, if I may respond, thank you. This is not speculation, as Ms. Durst has worked on the research and development teams at both Lush and Terra's, and thus understands the product markets of both of the products which she has worked on the development of. So this is not speculation.
The opposing counsel has gone over their allowed time.
Was the clock stopped during the objection?
Yes. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, hold on just one sec. Does the other timekeeper have the same time?
I still have.
Say again.
I still have 7 seconds remaining.
Okay. And I'll just note for the record, I saw 10 seconds flash up as a warning. There was an objection. So I'm guessing that's probably about right. So let's finish the objection. And I can just tell you it's overruled. You have 7 seconds left. Go ahead.
Your Honor, am I good to proceed again?
Yeah, you have 7 seconds.
Okay, so if Terra's product was to outperform Lush's, this would hurt Lush Fertilizer, yes?
In which way are we talking?
Economically.
Financially?
Honor, objection.
What's your objection?
The witness cannot testify on something that has not happened and on economics. She is an intern and was an intern in the field of and testing the safety of Drufo, not economics and the potential profits that Drufo could bring.
Okay. Objection's overruled.
Your Honor, that's time as well.
Thank you. I'm assuming you have no further questions then?
I do not. Thank you, Your Honor.
Redirect.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, with no redirect, no recross, the witness can be excused. Okay, are there any other witnesses for the plaintiff?
No, Your Honor, the plaintiff rests.
Plaintiff rests, okay. And for the defense?
Are you asking if we have any more witnesses, Your Honor?
Well, do you have any motions?
No,
Okay, do you have any witnesses?
we do. The defense calls Dr. Devin Williams to the stand.
Okay. If you want to fix your name.
Yes, one moment.
And do we have an attorney for the plaintiff for cross-examination as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sachs. And I presume we'll see Mr. Shefflin as soon as he's able to. There it is. Great. All right, Mr. Shefflin, if you'll call your witness, please.
Yes, we do call Dr. Devin Williams to the stand. It seems to me, apologies. Are you there?
Yes.
Dr. Williams? I'm sorry, not showing up on my screen. That's fine. We can work around that. Are my timekeepers ready?
Do you need a moment, counsel, to make sure that you can see your witness?
I won't need to see my witness. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Dr. Williams, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you give will be the truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Shefflin, you can inquire.
And just once more, I'd like to make sure both timekeepers are ready. All right, in that case, I'll begin now. Could you please state your name and spell your last for the benefit of the court?
Yes, it's Dr. Devin Williams, Williams.
And Dr. Williams, what do you do?
I lead Lush's toxicology research and development labs, and I'm also a professor.
Well, what do you do at Lush more specifically?
I work within agricultural research and development of their products.
Did you go to school at all to get that job?
Yes, my undergrad through my PhD was in pharmacology and toxicology at Colorado State University, and I did a post-PhD program at the University of Utah in pharmacotoxicology.
Well, after finishing that education, did you have any other jobs before moving to Lush?
Yes, I worked hands-on in the field of Lamar County's lead toxicologist office.
And what is toxicology?
Toxicology is the study of analyzing test results to determine the fate of chemicals.
And do you think all this experience and knowledge that you've demonstrated would help the jury to understand this case?
I really do. I've worked at Lush for about 10 years now, and I have extensive years of schooling.
In that case, Your Honor, I'd like to tender this witness as an expert in the fields of toxicology and agricultural development.
Any objection or voir dire?
No objections, Your Honor.
Okay, this witness will be received as an expert in toxicology and agricultural development.
In that case, I'll continue. Now, you talked a little bit about working at Lush. Is there any specific product you work on?
Yes, I worked on Drufo.
And what is Drufo?
Drufo is a patented bonding agent that binds ingredients in fertilizer to the products it's being put onto.
Why does Lush make Drufo that way?
Primarily, it's to keep it environmentally friendly and to stop the eutrophication process.
Eutrophication process? I've never heard of that. Could you explain it to us?
Yeah, of course. So simply put, it is the process of which nitrates from fertilizer in the soil gets pushed into the environment, and it can really harm fish, and it's really just not a good process.
That's good to know. Let's move on a little bit about Lush's products and head towards the toxicology aspect. Now, is there a reason that Lush hired a toxicologist for their company?
Yes, primarily I think it's to keep its products safe, and really just to make sure the overall studies of it are going well.
And when were you hired at Lush?
In 2010.
Now, after your time at Lush, have you reviewed any evidence that has to do with the toxicology of Drufo?
Yes, I reviewed it extensively.
And what has that evidence shown you?
The evidence primarily shows that there's no direct correlation between uses of Lush's products and cancer. And more importantly, there's no direct correlation between the uses of Drufo and non-Hodgkin lymphoma.
So just to dumb that down a little bit, I'm not a scientist. In your expert opinion, does Drufo cause cancer or not?
It doesn't, simply put.
In that case, let's move on to some opinions that differ from yours. Have you ever heard of the study that Casey Rogers did?
Yes, I have.
And have you reviewed that study?
Yes, I have.
Have you heard anything that other scientists have said about that study?
That's actually a really good question. Since the study isn't peer-reviewed or published, other scientists haven't actually seen it.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about your individual opinion then, because it seems like you're one of the only people who could testify about this. What are your thoughts on the study that Casey Rogers did?
In my expert opinion, I do think the study was conducted improperly. The results that came really are inconclusive with what the study was taken account for. And I don't think that the results should be used in a setting like this.
Well, why is that your expert opinion?
Mainly because the different groups that were studied in the study didn't take account for other environmental factors like pesticides or plant food. And it didn't account for the different lifestyles that the different users of Drufo would have.
Wow. Well, in that case, how would you have done this study?
I would have strictly studied different groups of farmers coming into account or not coming into account with Drufo. That way there were no other environmental exposures to affect my results.
I'm sorry, like I said earlier, I'm not a scientist. Could you put that in simpler terms for me?
Yeah, no problem. So I would study it on a basis of apples to apples, that being the different groups of farmers that are being looked at, as opposed to Casey Rogers' study, which really studied apples to oranges, looking at different groups of farmers versus other people who aren't apples.
Well, that makes sense to me. No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. So, Dr. Williams, you said you lead the toxicology research and development labs, right?
Yes.
And you also teach at the University of New Mexico College of Pharmacy, right?
Yes, and Colorado State University.
Yes, and you teach a handful of courses there, right?
Yes.
And does this keep you very busy?
I balance my work. I mean, I really enjoy what I do, so it really isn't a bother for me.
So then, is this why you never published any works on Drufo?
I am a toxicologist. I analyze the works on Drufo.
Oh, well, but Drufo is only one chemical though, but you haven't published works on any fertilizers, have you?
That's not my study. That's not what I do in any of my jobs.
But you are testifying today as an expert in toxicology, right?
Yes, I am.
And were you involved in any of Lush's in-house studies conducted on Drufo?
Yes, I was.
And these studies were fairly brief, weren't they?
I don't believe so. I mean, we really conclusively studied all of the effects of it.
But you are aware that the National Center for Biotechnology Information suggests that a study should be 8 to 10 years too long to confirm that there is a negative result, yes?
Yeah.
Lush fertilizer products are banned in other countries by the EU, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
But you're finishing a study that you think will be used to change that, yes?
Yes, I do believe so.
So this means that depending on the outcome of this case, your company would benefit financially from it, wouldn't they?
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation. Would you like me to explain my objection?
No response.
At this time, the Dr. Devin Williams is trying to pass a study that is very dependent on the outcome of this case. And depending on the outcome of this case, it can imply a financial bias for this witness.
Okay, so your response is it goes to bias.
May I respond to that, Your Honor?
Yes.
This going to bias only makes it relevant. It doesn't make it not speculation. My witness can't testify on what would happen in the future. They don't have knowledge of that because it hasn't happened yet.
Okay, objections overruled. You can answer.
Okay, I will re-ask my question. So depending on the outcome of this case, your company would benefit financially from it, wouldn't they?
Well, I'm not a time traveler and I can't see into the future. I also don't work in our economics department, so I don't really know the full effects of this lawsuit on the study.
You are paid by Lush Fertilizer, aren't you?
Yes.
And getting the study passed for the EU means that you would sell more products, correct?
We already do sell products in the EU.
You said before that it was banned in the EU, did you not?
Drufo is banned in the EU, but we still sell our products without Drufo in them.
However, all of your products do contain Drufo, do they not?
Not all of them, not the ones we sell in the EU.
Nevertheless, selling products with Drufo in the EU would boost you financially, would it not?
It'd be more environmentally responsible.
But would it boost your finances for your company?
I'm not sure about that.
All right, no further questions. Thank you.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Are my timekeepers both ready? In that case, I'll start now. Well, I'm having some trouble following the whole story of your product being banned in the EU. Why is it banned?
It is banned merely because of the EU's unrealistic laboratory conditions. If you put things into a petri dish and study them, they're gonna come out with results that really wouldn't be what we see in nature. And that is why it's banned, but I don't think it's proper banning.
So just to be clear, does that have anything to do with Lush's capability to cause cancer?
No, in no way. It's merely because of nitrate accumulation.
Let's move on a little bit to the topic of financial bias. Now, you have jobs other than Lush, or my apologies, I'll rephrase that question. Do you have any jobs other than working at Lush Fertilizer?
Yes, I do. I am a professor and I'm also tenured.
You're tenured as a professor job?
Yes, at the University of New Mexico.
So if you lost your income flow from Lush, would that affect your professor job?
No, I make a great deal of money.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Recross.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Williams, a positive outcome for the defense in this case would help your study with the EU, correct?
It could.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Okay. Doctor, you can be excused. Does the defense have any other witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. Defense calls Skylar Weirs to the stand.
Thank you, Ms. Bono. Be Ms. Dunn for the plaintiff.
If you could just give me a second to change my name, that would be great. Thank you.
Take your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, if the defense would call your next witness, please.
Defense calls Skylar Weirs to the stand, Your Honor.
Okay. If you'll raise your right hand and repeat. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you give will be the truth?
I do, Your Honor.
Okay, you may inquire.
Before we begin, I'd like to have a quick time check. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Weirs. Could you please state your name and spell your last for the record?
You bet I can. My name is Skylar Weirs, W-E-I-R-S.
Weirs? That's interesting. We've heard someone else with that last name testify earlier today, didn't we?
Yeah, actually, we have my twin, Dakota.
Your twin?
Yeah, shared a womb for 9 months, house for 18 years. I think by definition that makes us twins.
And so you're testifying against your twin?
I am, yeah.
Could you elaborate farther on that?
Yeah, totally. So Dakota believes Drufo, this game-changing product in the agritech industry, is what caused their cancer. And I personally, in all my year of research, haven't seen any, causal links between Drufo and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Thank you, Mr. Weers. Moving on a little bit, what do you currently do for a living?
Well, I do quite a lot. However, my main source of income is as a freelance journalist, investigative journalist at that. And, I write for The Rationalist. I write all sorts of articles, and yeah.
What's The Rationalist?
Well, The Rationalist is quite a few things, to be honest. They're a nonprofit devoted to dissuading pseudoscience. However, they're also a magazine that is, once again, devoted to dissuading pseudoscience.
What's pseudoscience?
Well, pseudoscience, to put it simply, is science that has no actual basis in reality.
And have you, what articles have you written for The Rationalist?
Well, I've written quite a few. However, one of the main articles and series at that I've written about is the agritech industry.
What's the agritech industry?
Well, the agritech industry is an industry devoted to basically increasing the yield of agriculture.
And how long did you take to research this series?
Just under a year.
And what sources did you use for this research?
Well, I used quite a few, from big agritech companies to their research, as well as the USDA and NASDA, both very good government agencies.
What are the USDA and NASDA besides government agencies?
Well, the USDA, they're both acronyms. However, the USDA is the United States Department of Agriculture, and the NASDA is the National Association State Department of Agriculture.
And Mr. Weers, how would you describe your level of knowledge within the agritech industry?
Well, other than the people who work at the NASDA and USDA, I believe I have the best well-rounded knowledge of the agritech industry.
Your Honor, under Rule 702, I would like to qualify Skylar Weers as an expert witness in the field of agritech based on their level of knowledge.
Thanks. Any voir dire or objection?
Yes, Your Honor. Permission to voir dire the witness.
Please.
Now, Mr. Weers, you never went to college, correct?
I have not yet.
So you haven't studied biology?
No.
Or statistics?
Nope.
Or oncology, perhaps?
Nope.
And you stated previously that you studied agritech for about a year, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
And you also previously testified that you were doing quite a lot in this year, correct?
Yeah, I was.
You are working part-time at Applebee's, correct?
That is correct, yeah. A freelance journalist. It does make money, however, I need another job to tie in those loose ends.
Of course. So essentially, within this year of research, it wasn't solely devoted to just the research. Your time was split, correct?
That is correct. But basically, all my time off was devoted to research.
All your time off.
That is correct, yeah.
Your Honor, though the witness is not required to hold a specific level of degree, he does not qualify in the level of knowledge and therefore should not be tendered as a witness in the field of agritech.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Please.
This witness, I've laid enough proper foundation, which was something that was required in the court's prior rulings to allow Mr. Weers to be an expert. And I believe I've laid enough foundation. They've showed that they've done a lot of research. They've used the proper areas to research it. And they've written not only an article, but a series on the agritech industry. So therefore, I believe they have enough knowledge to testify as an expert.
Ms. Dunn, any response to that?
Yes, Your Honor. She claims that this witness qualifies in the field of knowledge, and yet this witness only spent a single year researching, and in this time, their time was split. They had a second job, and though they read a series of articles, it is for a rationalist literary magazine and not a scientific journal.
Understood. I will find, based on prior rulings and based upon the foundation laid, that based on the education, training, or experience of this witness, that he can be qualified as an expert in this field. Your objection is noted and understood, and I think probably goes more to the weight and not the admissibility, which I'm sure you'll point out on cross-examination. Ms. Bono, you can inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Mr. Weirs, did you ever come across a company called Lush Fertilizer throughout your research?
Yeah, I did actually. Really cool stuff what they're doing over there.
And did you ever hear about their leading ingredient, Drufo?
Yeah,
And what is Drufo?
well, Drufo's quite a lot, honestly. However, it is an incredibly good or incredibly strong bonding agent, as well as it doubles as a pesticide.
That's very interesting. Let's focus in more on it being a bonding agent. What does that mean?
Well, a bonding agent is a product or chemical applied to a fertilizer to essentially keep everything else in the fertilizer on the plant itself. And because Drufo is able to be such a good bonding agent, it means it is able to be applied less per year and have the same exact effect.
Is there any other benefit beside it just being applied less?
Yeah, actually, because it is bonded to the plant, it means it is able to keep all these things together, meaning when it rains or pours, honestly, when it precipitates at all, it is able to keep everything on the plant instead of, say, in our water supply.
You also mentioned that it doubles as a pesticide. What does that mean?
Well, it doubles as a pesticide, meaning instead of, say, adding a product called 2,4-D, which is a pesticide, it is able to keep the fertilizer pure, if you will. It is able to remove things like arsenic and glyphosates out of the product.
So just for a little bit more clarity, what is the benefit of this?
Yeah, well, the benefit, honestly, there's a whole host of benefits. However, the main ones are it's safer, or it's as safe, if not safer, than everything else on the market, as well as it needs to be applied less, making it more environmentally friendly.
So within your research into the agritech industry and within Lush, what has the agritech industry take been on Lush?
Well, Lush as a company is really good. However, the old guard, which is a very established part of the agritech industry, does not like them, as their product Drufo is basically going to uproot or has uprooted the entire agritech industry. And they are spending literally billions of dollars to keep, or basically to slander Lush Fertilizer.
Objection, Your Honor. The witness can't testify on the economic benefits or harmful effects of Drufo. He's only here today as an expert in agritech specifically.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Please.
This question is merely asking my witness to talk about, in their expert opinion, certain controversies within the agritech industry, which they have established, they have an extensive knowledge on. This isn't about much, it's more about how the agritech industry is treating Lush.
Okay, Ms. Dunn.
I understand that he's here today to testify on behalf of agritech, but he's here as an expert on the effects of agritech, how it works, how it helps the environment, and less so the economic downfalls or benefits.
Okay, Ms. Bono.
He's here to testify as the agritech industry as a whole. There hasn't been any set guidelines to this, and as he's shown, he has extensive knowledge in this.
Okay, thank you. Objections overruled. Thank you.
So would you like to continue on where you left off, Mr. Weirs?
Yeah, totally. Well, I was pretty much done. However, yeah, the old guard is spending billions to slander the name of Lush Fertilizer.
And moving on a little bit to your relationship with Dakota. Did you two ever discuss their work at Haven?
Yeah, we did actually.
And during those discussions, did they ever mention any products do they use?
Yeah, actually they did.
And what were these products?
Well,
Hearsay.
Response.
Your Honor, this is not hearsay because it's not specifically what they said. And it's also party opponent if the court does believe it is hearsay.
Okay, yeah, the objection's overruled. Thank you.
So, Mr. Weers, what were these products?
Yeah, well, as well as using, lush fertilizer, they spread a grass seed product, which had synthetic nitrogen in it, as well as it was treated with a pesticide called 2,4-D.
What's synthetic nitrogen?
Well, synthetic nitrogen is something that has to be added to literally every fertilizer in the fertilizer, pesticide, really anything in the agri-tech industry, because America's obsession with green grass has basically caused it so that all weeds, all everything except for grass is removed from the lawns, such as clovers, which would pull nitrogen out of the environment into the dirt. However, because we don't have clovers in our lawns anymore, so every single fertilizer needs to be treated with synthetic nitrogen to make sure the grass can live.
Thank you, Mr. Weers. And besides the products they used, did they ever just discuss how Haven was run?
Yeah, they did. They talked a lot about how, they didn't wear proper PPE and just their work in general.
And how does the other products Dakota use compare with Lush's products, in your expert opinion?
Well, in my expert opinion, quite frankly, they're worse. They aren't as safe and they're much worse for the environment.
Objection, Your Honor, speculation. It was never established in Dakota's testimony what specific products besides Drufo were used, and therefore this witness cannot testify and compare the safety of these products that were not specified to Lush's products.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Please, Ms. Bono.
Earlier, this witness testified to the other products that they had personal knowledge of that Dakota used. So they have plenty of knowledge into what these products are. And as they testified earlier, what these products do. So they have ample knowledge. And this is also not speculating on the future or what might happen. So this is not speculation.
Response.
Yes, earlier this witness testified that when he spoke to Dakota, she used a spread setter. That is a generic term. It is not a specific brand or type of fertilizer. They also mentioned pesticides. Again, that is too generic and broad, and therefore, again, this comparison cannot be made.
Ms. Bono.
They talked about specifically a specific pesticide, 2,4-D, and they also testified to a specific grass seed they used. So it's not speculation.
They also testified that 2,4-D is in every single fertilizer. Did they not? Therefore, it's too broad, and this comparison cannot be made.
I've got enough. Objections overruled. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Weers, how does Lush compare to these other products Dakota used?
Yeah, Lush honestly is leagues ahead of basically any other product Dakota used, simply because Drufo was in it.
Thank you, Mr. Weers, and thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Okay. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Mr. Weers, you write for Rationalist Magazine, correct?
I do, yeah.
And you've written several articles, yes?
I have, yeah.
And you describe them as prominent, correct?
For the most part.
Now, Mr. Weers, have they won any awards?
No, they have not.
So it's your own opinion then that makes them prominent?
As well as, them being seen by a pretty large audience, yeah.
But they have not won any awards?
No, they have not.
And you write on a variety of topics, correct?
I do, yeah.
Does that include articles about UFOs?
Yeah, actually it has. I made an article a while back.
I need a yes or no. Thank you.
Okay.
And you haven't essentially specialized then on a single topic until recently, correct?
That is correct.
Now, in regards to Lush fertilizer, you claim that you know from your own research that Lush fertilizer is safe, yes?
That is correct, yes.
And it was your editor who suggested you research agritech, correct?
Yeah, they are the ones who assigned me jobs and articles.
So is it safe to assume it wasn't your own personal interest that initiated this research?
No, although quite quickly I found a love for the agritech industry.
In the past year?
In the past year, yeah.
Now, is Rationalist Magazine an academic journal?
They do write about all sorts of sciences, although
I understand, but it's a literary magazine, correct?
That is correct.
So therefore, it's not an academic journal.
Depending on how you look at it, yeah.
Okay, so it's a magazine that promotes scientific skepticism, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we don't want. Sorry.
You may continue.
Okay, yeah, it is. We don't want people to just go with the rhetoric. I mean,
So it's entertainment, essentially.
no.
Okay, now in this research on agritech and Drufo specifically, you read publications written by other agritech companies, correct?
Yeah.
And you reviewed the research referenced in those publications, yes?
Yeah.
And you mentioned in your direct that you reviewed information from the United States Department of Agriculture and the National Association of the State Department of Agriculture, yes?
That is correct, yeah.
And so after doing this research, you made the claim that Lush fertilizer is safe, correct?
Yep.
But that's not what necessarily the research showed, yes?
Well, that is relative. It is much safer than everything else on the market as well. If you wear proper PPE, there's virtually no risk.
You testified previously that the research was inconclusive, was it not?
For what research exactly?
When you researched the United States Department of Agriculture and the National Association of State Department of Agriculture and read those publications.
On the dangers and carcinogens of Lush fertilizer, every single scientific, basically anything, said that there is no causal link between Drufo and Lush fertilizer.
But the research was inconclusive, correct?
To the dangers of Lush fertilizer.
Yes. So essentially your own opinion that it's safe compared to that of inconclusive, it was different, correct?
I'm sorry, you seem to be slightly confused. I'm saying, okay, no, go ahead, please.
Let me restate my questions. In the research you did through the United States Department of Agriculture and those publications, you found that the link between Drufo and cancer is inconclusive, correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
You also previously stated that from your own personal research, Drufo is safe, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
So essentially your own opinion and the research don't line up, correct? Safe is different than inconclusive, yes?
The danger of Lush fertilizer has been inconclusive.
I'm asking about the comparison between what you found and what the data showed.
No,
They were different, correct?
I would say they line up.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
I would say they line up.
So safe and inconclusive are the same thing in your own opinion?
Essentially, yes. They found no danger in Lush fertilizer.
I'm asking about safe versus inconclusive. You think those are the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, despite having no formal college level training, you also claimed previously that no one has the opinion on modern agritech like you, correct?
Well, other than the employees of the USDA and NASDA, I have the best well-rounded general knowledge of the agritech industry. That is correct.
You have the best well-rounded knowledge, but you've only researched agritech for about a year, correct?
No.
And you believe you're more knowledgeable than doctors who've studied this topic for 10 years?
Well, in those times, as say this hypothetical 10 years, they would have been studying on just a very pinpoint section of the agritech industry, while I have been researching
That's the hypothetical claim, though. You said that you have the best well-rounded knowledge besides those in the United States Department of Agriculture. So you think you're more knowledgeable than people who went to college and studied it for 4 years.
Objection, Your Honor, badgering the witness. Would you like me to explain?
Response.
Your Honor, I'm just asking the witness to clarify a previous testimony that they made.
Okay, you can proceed.
Mr. Weirs, you think you're more knowledgeable than doctors who have studied this for 10 years? Yes or no?
In this hypothetical, they did incredible amounts of research on just everything in the agritech industry for these 10 years. No, however, that is simply not the case.
Okay, now have you discussed your research with other agritech scientists?
Well, although not directly,
So
my
you don't
article-
know, sorry,
Sorry?
please continue.
Yeah, so so directly, no. However, throughout the entire process, my articles are free to read by everyone, and I have received critiques.
I understand, but you don't know if other scientists who do this for a living for longer than a year even agree with your work because you haven't conversed with them. They've simply just read it.
Directly, no, although I
Okay.
am able
Now,
to.
your article you wrote for a literary magazine, like we established, yes,
Yeah, that is correct.
and not a scientific journal,
Well, it is scientific in nature.
but it's not a qualified scientific journal, correct? Like we established. So essentially, these articles that you write, they're not research, but rather journalism, correct?
I'm sorry, can you rephrase?
Yes, Rationalist Magazine, like we established, is not a scientific journal. And so therefore, the articles that you testified to writing are not research, but rather journalism, correct?
I believe there is a correspondence to both of these subjects. And to say one is exclusively one and not a bit of both is misinformation.
I understand, but it's not a research paper,
It is. I have researched for about a year.
but it's not an academic journal.
I mean, just because it is not academic, or sorry, just because it is not, just because.
Why don't we move on, Mr. Weirs?
Yeah, why don't
You
we?
also described the link between Drufo and non-Hodgkin's to be inconclusive, correct?
I did, yeah.
And you state so because Dakota has been exposed to other pesticides and carcinogens, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
However, you mentioned in your research that Drufo protects consumers because it eliminates exposure to other carcinogens, correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
So wouldn't that mean if there's less of these other carcinogens with the presence of Drufo, then the chances of Drufo being the cause of this cancer goes up?
I'm sorry, could you?
Yes, if Drufo is eliminating other carcinogens, then wouldn't that mean that someone who gets cancer in the presence of it, Drufo being the source, the chances of that goes up?
No, actually. Rufo is able to eliminate carcinogens in the product lush fertilizer. However, it isn't able to say completely nullify any other carcinogens in 2,4-D or synthetic nitrogen that grass seed products are treated with.
I understand. Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Mr. Weirs, you said that the danger of Drufo was not, did you say that the danger of Drufo was inconclusive?
Yeah, the danger of, or the link between Drufo and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is inconclusive.
But has the research shown that Drufo is safe?
Yes, it has.
So does that mean that the safety of Drufo was not inconclusive?
Well, every single article or every single paper I have read that is or has the direct goal of showing how Drufo is carcinogenic has been inconclusive at best. While every single article I've seen on Drufo being safe has been a good A-OK, if you will.
And most of the articles you saw were from government agencies?
That is correct, yeah.
So was your research for these articles pretty extensive?
It was very.
And you put a lot of effort into did you put a lot of effort into your articles?
You bet I did.
And did you try your hardest to make sure that they were educational and correct?
I did, yeah, absolutely.
And were you the only one who looked at your articles?
I wasn't, no.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Recross based on the redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. I just want to clarify something you stated earlier, Mr. Weirs. The research showed that the safety between Drufo and cancer was inconclusive, correct?
Inconclusive at best, yeah.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Okay. This witness can be excused. Do we have any other witnesses for the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense would like to call our final witness, Miss Blake Doncourt, to the stand. And I believe she's just now moving into our witness room. So if you would allow both her and I a moment to change our names, that would be appreciated.
Take your time.
All right, Miss Doncourt, it appears as though you've popped up on my screen. Are you able to hear me and everything though?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Your Honor, may I proceed?
Yep, call your first witness.
Okay.
Or your witness.
The defense calls Miss Blake Doncourt to the stand.
Okay, if you'll raise your right hand, please. Do you swear affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you give will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
You may inquire.
All right, and before I proceed, I would just like to confirm that my timekeeper is ready and get a time check. All right. Okay. Good evening or good afternoon, Ms. Doncourt. Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
My name is Blake Doncourt, Doncourt.
All right, Ms. Doncourt, let's start off with a little bit of your knowledge of the company Lush Fertilizer. Do you have knowledge of the company?
As a matter of fact, I do.
How?
I am its founder and CEO currently.
Gotcha. You seem a little agitated to be here today. Why is that?
I am agitated due to the reason that I do not believe that Lush should be here right now.
Why?
Because it is not right that we are being sued when our products are perfectly safe and environmentally good.
Okay, yeah, you mentioned products. What types of products does Lush Fertilizer produce?
We produce fertilizer products.
Okay, and who all has been known to use those products?
Well, anywhere from small businesses to governments to individuals.
Okay, and will you tell me a little bit about the work that it took to make Lush into the company that it is today?
I could go on and on about this, but it felt like I traded in my life to help build this company. I spent so many sleepless nights and long days just trying to get this company off the ground, and I'm happy where it is right now.
Okay, yeah, focusing in on your company just a little bit more. Are there any routine practices which are followed at your company?
Most notably environmentalism.
Okay, yeah, will you explain that to me?
We put environmentalism at the front of every decision that we make here at Lush, and I am proud of that.
Okay, let's talk about something that's been discussed a little bit previously in trial here today. Your company's flagship product, Drufo. Was Drufo developed internally within Lush?
Yes, it very much was.
Okay, how was it developed within the company?
It was developed around the time that I first started the company. And from then on, our scientists and researchers within the research and development team tested it extensively to make sure that it was not only the safest to put out on the market, but the best product it could be.
Okay, you mentioned safety. Let's expand on that a little bit. Has Lush always conducted its studies regarding Drufo internally?
Yes, it has.
Okay, and as CEO, do you get to see these internal studies as they come through the company?
I'm a part of every conversation, email chain that has to deal with Drufo.
Okay, and throughout your time at Lush, have you ever put a product on the market which has been identified as a specific risk to persons who may come in contact with it?
That is a very long question, Ms. Miller, and the answer to that is no.
Okay. Were you ever made aware that Drufo contains small risks?
Yes, I was aware of that fact.
Okay, but have you ever seen a study showing conclusively that Drufo is linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
I have never come across such study.
Okay, I'll now ask my co-counsel to screen share Exhibit 4 as it's been previously entered into evidence. All right, Ms. Johncourt, just let me know as soon as you are able to see that exhibit.
I am able to see the exhibit, Miss Miller.
Okay, do you recognize this exhibit?
I believe so, if it was brought up earlier in court today.
Okay, yeah, what do you recognize it as?
An email that Carson Durst provided to the courts.
Okay. But do you have any record or any record of ever receiving this email? Excuse me.
I have no personal recollection of ever receiving this email.
Okay, and does your company have any record?
No, it does not actually, because we scoured our email systems here at Lush, found nothing. And then we turned our email system over to the plaintiff's lawyers, and so far I know they have nothing.
Okay, my co-counsel may stop screen sharing now, and thank you, Ms. Doncourt, and thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions at this time.
Cross-examination.
Thank you for being here today, Ms. Doncourt. So, as the CEO of the company, did you intend for landscaping companies to use your product?
Yes, it's fertilizer.
And is it true that all your products contain Drufo?
As far as I know, and my brain is a little messy, I'm a little old. But our flagship product does.
Drufo is the star ingredient that made Lush Fertilizer one of the world's largest fertilizer suppliers, correct?
Yes, I'm glad you know.
Would an employee of a landscaping company, such as Dakota Weirs, be reasonably expected to use these products?
Yes, if they're working with Haven Landscaping, which is a landscaping company.
So, as you said so indirect, as the CEO of Lush, you oversee all operations of the business, right?
Yes, I do. That is what a chief executive officer does.
So you're familiar with all aspects of all the operations then?
Yes.
So is it safe to say that you prioritize consumers' faith in the safety of Lush?
Please clarify that question or speak up a little bit.
Is it safe to say that you prioritize the faith of your consumers in your products?
Yes, we prioritize our customers.
So you'd agree that significant research and testing was done on Drufo before putting it on the market, correct?
Yes, as I've said.
So because of that, you conducted 2 in-house studies addressing concerns that were raised about the possibility of Drufo being dangerous, right?
Yes, we've conducted those studies.
And how long were these studies?
I believe a couple months in the making. My brain's a little fuzzy. It was way back when I started the company that we did those.
Yes, ma'am. And what specific methodologies were used in these studies?
In these studies, I believe Devin Williams knew about these studies, and that was discussed within their testimony today.
Ma'am, I thought you said you oversee all aspects and operations of your company.
Yes, but I can't be expected.
Objection, Your Honor, outside the scope of this witness's affidavit. While Carson Durst has knowledge within their affidavit to testify on this, Blake Downcourt does not, and witnesses, at least within the scope of this trial, are bound to their prior statements. And so my witness cannot testify on this as it is not laid out in her affidavit.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes, please.
This is the leading executive of Lush Fertilizer and has testified and said that she knows all operations and oversees everything that goes on in the business. So therefore, I think that she should know about the study and the specifics of it.
Okay. Any response, Ms. Miller?
Yes, Your Honor. Regardless of what exactly our opposing counsel is asking of my witness, it's still outside of the scope of her prior statement. And according to the rules of competition, that is not allowed. She cannot testify on things outside the scope of her prior statement.
Ms. Valena, is it your position that this is a fair extrapolation or something that this witness could possibly extrapolate to?
My opinion has not changed, Your Honor.
Okay. Proceed.
So since you conducted these two safety experiments, is it safe to say you want potential buyers to feel good about buying Lush?
Yes, I do.
And you consider yourself a steward of proper safety practices, correct?
Yes.
So would you, as an advocate for the safety and well-being of the environment, want consumers to know potential risk present when utilizing your product that is potentially dangerous?
Objection, Your Honor, ambiguous. The question asked by opposing counsel was quite long and frankly a little confusing. And so I would ask them to break it down a little bit for the sake of both my witness and the jury.
Gladly, Your Honor.
I was going to say objection denied. I think your witness was about to answer the question. So if you want to break it up, you can, or if you want her to answer the question, that's fine too.
Whatever Ms. Donker prefers.
Could you please break up the question?
So you said that you were an advocate for the safety and well-being of the environment, yes?
Yes, very much so.
So you want consumers to know potential risks that exist, correct?
You would want customers to know.
So with all of this in mind, where are these risks of Drufo specifically to be found written in noticeable print on the packaging?
Could you please show me the packaging?
Your Honor, I would like to ask the witness to reference what has been marked as Exhibit 1. Exhibit 1 is a copy of the ingredients label and the packaging.
Okay, does the witness have the exhibit?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, you can inquire.
Ms. Doncourt, do you recognize this?
From earlier in court today, yes.
Very good. So there are many safety recommendations, correct?
Yes, there is a warning for PPE.
Thank you. But nowhere on this label does it say that there are potential risks that, may include cancer and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, correct?
No, there are no labels on here for potential risks.
Thank you. Then so you conducted those two in-house studies, correct?
Yes.
And what were the results of those studies?
Those results showed that there was some insignificant risks within Drufo.
So with this in mind, would baking Drufo eliminate any of these risks existent?
From the knowledge that I have obtained, that is what baking does. It would eliminate risks.
And do you bake Drufo?
No, I made the decision not to.
So in the absence of Drufo, if you were to take it out completely, Lush would not be as profitable as it is currently, correct?
Yes, that is true.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Ms. Doncourt. No further questions.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. And just before I proceed, I would once again ask for a time check, please. Great, thank you. Okay, Your Honor, may I proceed?
Please.
Okay. Ms. Doncourt, when thinking about the expected consumers and customers of your product, do you expect them to follow safety labels?
That's what any reasonable person would think of another.
Okay, and thus do you expect them to wear protective equipment?
Yes, especially when it's recommended.
Okay, let's talk about your CEO role a little bit. Are you on the label design team at Lush Fertilizer?
No, I am not.
Okay, and though you oversee every element of Lush Fertilizer, do you specifically oversee the details of every label?
I can't be expected to do that day to day. That would wear me out more than I already am.
Okay, and thinking about those safety warnings just a little bit more, why are they included on your product?
They are included on our products because we obviously care about our customers.
Okay, and has there ever been a need to warn of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma on your products?
No, there's never been a need to warn of that.
Okay, let's discuss baking a little bit. I got a little confused during cross. Will you clarify exactly what the benefits of baking an ingredient like Drufo would be?
Baking Drufo would mean that it would eliminate any risks or harms that may be within the product.
Okay, and could carcinogens be considered one of these risks?
Of course, a carcinogen is a harm.
Okay, and is there any other use for baking that you know of other than to bake out these potential harms?
No, I know of no other benefit.
Okay, so why exactly did you choose to not bake your product?
I chose to not bake Drufo because, along with the valid scientific studies that were done on Drufo, that showed that it was only potential and insignificant risks, that some money would be needed for capitalists in paying back people.
Okay, so you mentioned money as a top priority in this decision. Were there any other priorities that came into play when making this decision?
Well, environmentalism, of course.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Doncourt, and thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Okay, recross.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Doncourt, you have a child, don't you?
Yes, I do.
With their whole life.
Objection, Your Honor. Outside the scope of my redirect examination, opposing counsel is bound to the scope of my redirect, and I asked nothing about Charlie on my redirect.
Objection is beyond the scope. What's your response, counsel?
It is only a preface.
Okay. So then objection sustained. Go ahead.
Because you just said you have a child. If your child took a job working at a landscaping company, would you prefer that their exposure to risk be 0 or minimal?
Objection, Your Honor. This is still outside the scope of my direct examination. We didn't talk at all about hypotheticals or potential situations that may happen with Ms. Doncourt's children. And so this is still outside the scope.
Response?
I'm asking about the existent risk. The risk is not hypothetical, and I'm asking about the hypothetical or this risk over a hypothetical 0.
Okay, objection's overruled.
Let me restate my question, please. So if your child took a job at a landscaping company working with a product would you rather them be exposed to 0 risk or minimal risk?
Well, excuse me to say this, but everything has a risk, no matter where you go, no matter what you do.
Ms. Doncourt, please answer my question. 0? Thank you.
Any further questions?
No, Your Honor. That is all.
All right, I think the witness is, we've gone through cross and recross, right?
Yes, Your
Direct,
Honor.
redirect. Okay.
And
So,
this is our final witness, and so the defense rests.
okay, Ms. Doncourt can be excused. The defense rests. And now we proceed to closing arguments.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you for your time and attention throughout the trial today. My client, Dakota Weirs, was standing on the doorstep of an incredibly bright future. From a young age, her passion for the piano was her path forward in life. What began as a hobby that bonded her and her grandfather bloomed into musical competitions and a full ride scholarship to Juilliard. Dakota Weirs was supposed to be flourishing in New York, but college dorms and corner cafes turned into hospital rooms and doctor's offices when this child was diagnosed with cancer. Now, they say that life is priceless, that there's no value or number to be assigned on a life that's well lived. But today, we uncovered the horrendous truth that Lush Fertilizer stuck a price tag on survival when their gross negligence robbed Dakota Weirs of her entire future. Now today, for my client to prove that Lush Fertilizer was negligent and that they chose profit over the lives of others, there are certain elements that we have shown by preponderance of the evidence, meaning that based on the evidence, the following events are more likely than not. The first is that Lush Fertilizer produced a product containing a chemical compound known as Drufo. Drufo is a key marketed ingredient inside Lush's fertilizer, and that's not being contested by the defense today. The second burden we have proven is that Lush Fertilizer failed to exercise reasonable care to prevent a product from creating an unreasonable risk of harm. And additionally, that Dakota is the consumer that could be reasonably expected to use this product. As you heard today from Dakota's testimony, she worked for Haven Landscaping for several years. And when asked if landscaping companies are the expected user of their products, Blake Doncourt, the chief executive officer at Lush, answered with yes. Now, fertilizers are primarily made up of chemicals. And yes, chemicals are dangerous. Chemicals can cause skin irritation and watery eyes. But irritated skin is leagues away from the life-ending damage caused by an ingredient completely unique to Lush Fertilizer, and that is Drufo. And therefore, it does not warrant the same standard warning label that's slapped on every fertilizer bottle. As you've seen from Exhibit 1 today, the warning label begins with, as with any spray fertilizer. But Lush is not any spray fertilizer, not when they've stuffed it full of a carcinogenic product that makes their company stand out. And as you heard today, Blake Doncourt also admitted that she does not get involved with the label production for her own products. These are the labels that save lives, and she's not involved. Additionally, when asked if Lush ever had any concerns about the safety of Drufo, Blake Doncourt answered no without any hesitation. And yet they conducted not one, but 2 in-house studies. And it's important to understand that the duration of these studies was measured in weeks, when, as you heard today, typical research lasts years. Dr. Casey Rogers, another witness who testified today on Dakota's behalf, and who is not a paid employee of the very company that relies on Drufo, conducted her own study and found that you are 10 times more likely to contract non-Hodgkin's lymphoma after exposure to Drufo. The causal link between Drufo and cancer is more probable than not. If it wasn't, it wouldn't show in the research. And perhaps Lush wouldn't have buried their studies and fired a man who raised concerns about Drufo's safety. Finally, we have proven today that Dakota has damages caused specifically by Lush's negligence. As you heard from her testimony, she lost her passion and her future. And additionally, because Dakota Weird suffered such damages, and that these damages are a consequence of the negligence of Lush, you're directed to determine if Dakota expressed any negligence as well. Let me answer this for you. She did not. She acted in a way that any reasonable consumer could have been expected to act. Lush Fertilizer, ladies and gentlemen, is simply afraid. They were afraid to let go of the 2% of profits it would have taken to bake Drufo and eliminate a risk of cancer. They were afraid of their secret being leaked. And most of all now, they're afraid that their mistake of stealing this girl's life is going to cost them their biggest moneymaker. For these reasons, we ask you to return a verdict in favor of the plaintiff and ask for damages in the amount of $10 million. Thank you.
Thank you. Closing argument for the defense.
Yes, Your Honor. And once again, before I proceed, I'd just like to confirm that both timekeepers are ready. Okay. Members of the jury, today we have heard the case of Dakota Weirs versus Lush Fertilizer and have been called to determine based off of proof, not possibilities, whether or not the defendant, Lush Fertilizer, is negligent in the claims brought against them by the plaintiff, Dakota Weirs. Today, we saw 6 witnesses take the stand, and through the testimony of each of these 6 witnesses, we saw that while the plaintiff only provided vague possibilities, the defense provided us with clear, conclusive, indisputable proof. We first heard from Dr. Casey Rogers. Dr. Rogers, who explained to us their inconclusive study, which failed to examine all environmental factors which Dakota may have been exposed to while on the job, meaning that the possibilities presented in this study do not show any proof regarding Dakota's condition. We also heard a direct quote from Casey Rogers saying, quote, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is caused by the environment, not by Drufo. We also heard from Carson Durst. Carson Durst to explain to us through their entire testimony only one study, which shows very vaguely that Drufo is only potentially carcinogenic. Once again, this is an example of the plaintiff attempting to use possibilities to build their case here today, but not proof. We also heard from the plaintiff themselves say that their witness, Carson Durst, was not very qualified. We also heard from Dakota Weirs themselves. Dakota Weirs, who explained to us that they only think that lush fertilizer caused their cancer. In her opening statement, my co-counsel, Ms. Bono, asked you to listen for keywords such as I think, maybe, possibly, might, could. This example, this I only think lush fertilizer has caused my cancer, is another example of the plaintiff in this case attempting to use possibilities to form their case, but no proof. From the defense, we first heard from Dr. Devin Williams, who explained to us the extensive studies and research done by Lush Fertilizer on Drufo. They explained to us that from 2003 to 2010, Lush specifically studied the impacts of Drufo, meaning that 7 years were dedicated to making sure Drufo was safe for consumers. We also heard from Skylar Weirs, who explained to us that Dakota was exposed to multiple different fertilizers and used multiple fertilizers while on the job, meaning that there is no link, no causal link between any of these fertilizers, including that of Lush's and Dakota's diagnosis. We also heard from Blake Doncourt. Blake Doncourt, who explained to us that decisions made at Lush Fertilizer were based off of proof, studies done by qualified researchers in the pursuit of customer safety. Your Honor and members of the jury, I now ask you to turn to jury instruction number 2, which outlines the burden that the plaintiff must prove in the case here today in order to meet their burden of proof. It explains to us that if the plaintiff fails to prove even one of the 4 elements outlined within this jury instruction, we must find the the defendant not negligent on all accounts. Within the second element of this jury instruction, we see that the defendant took reasonable care, as was explained to us by both Devin Williams and Blake Doncourt. But we also see that the product was not used in a manner that should have been reasonably expected, as Dakota neglected to wear proper PPE and protective equipment just because it was too inconvenient and too much of a hassle for them at the time. Looking at element 4 within this jury instruction, we see this come up again, but we also see that there is no proof that the plaintiff has damages which were caused by the defendant, as both Dakota and Skylar explained to us that multiple products were used while Dakota worked at Haven, and thus there is no causal link between any of these products and Dakota's diagnosis. Members of the jury, it is clear through proof and not possibilities that the only plausible conclusion to be considered here today is that of Lush Fertilizer being found not negligent on all accounts. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. And I assume there's no rebuttal close.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, good. Well, congratulations, guys. You made it through another round. With that, I know they told us that we can give some feedback. I don't have a whole lot other than that was really enjoyable to watch, and can't wait to see you all in real courtrooms in a few years from now. But if there's any other feedback that any of the other judges want to give. No?
I have just a few quick things. I know you all have to get to lunch and you have another round, so I'll go as fast as I can. I thought this was a really great round all around. I thought objections were well argued throughout. 2 things that I think that you can maybe work on between now and the next round, and this was across the board on both sides, is interrupting. both witnesses and also your opposing counsel. I think especially interrupting your opposing counsel, you will get judges who will yell at you about that. They will be very upset that you are talking to each other. You should be talking to the judge. And interrupting your witnesses should be like a last ditch cross control technique. If you've asked the same question like 3 times and they're still giving you a really long answer, that's when it's appropriate. But if it's the first time they're answering that question, I think that you can let them give their what you think is a silly explanation and then come back with a, is that a yes? Or that's not what I was asking. Let me ask that question again. And then I think for witnesses, I thought you were all really great. I just would be careful where you're picking your battles, because sometimes it sounds like you're fighting a little too much for your own side. And so, especially if you're not like the plaintiff or defendant, you don't have much of a stake in today's case. So if you're fighting for your side, it sounds a little less like you're a real person. And then I think everyone can slow down. I think that's almost always true, but I think everyone today can slow down. But I thought it was a really great round. It was a lot of fun to see. Thank you all for letting us come and watch it.
I have one thing to say as well. I think you guys did awesome. This was a very enjoyable round. The time went by really quickly. What I will say is that I know all of you guys are very passionate about this, but sometimes that passion can dilute your professionalism a little bit. So just be careful in that regard. Don't get too brash or mean. Try to stay professional at all times, because again, that's something that we do score you guys on. So that's probably the only feedback I have.
I had one thing as well. And just kind of going off of what Ms. Campbell was just saying, I think it's really hard to kind of separate yourself from what your work product is, separate yourself from what you're trying to advocate for. One thing that I was told when I started advocating in a courtroom is pretend like you have a cup of cappuccino on your desk, and you're sipping cappuccino. You're looking real cool and you're calm, you're collected. And that'll help you kind of stay in the zone and stay a little bit more professional. And then as far as the interrupting thing, I definitely agree with that. Interrupting the witness is not the way to get your point across. In fact, it looks like you're scared of what the witness is going to say. A lot of times the best way to go about it is to ask a different question that's maybe a little bit more pointed and a little less argumentative, because the witness is going to disagree. If you're trying to make your point with them, you can save that for your closing.
Yeah. If ever you say to a witness, would you agree? They're going to pin their ears back and come for you in real life, because they've been trained not to agree.
Same thing with questions that start with "so." You got to watch out for those also.
Yeah. But really great round.
Really great.
That was super fun. I'm glad we got to watch it. And George, our monitor, or did Alfred have anything he wanted to say? Mr. Rodriguez? Nope, he disappeared. Okay. And for our monitor, George, is there anything else that we need to cover or do?
I don't believe so. Just make sure that the scoring panelists fill out their score sheets and send them off.
Excellent. Well, good job, you guys. You've made it through. You got one more to go. Keep up the good work, okay? Right, I guess we
Thank you, Your Honor.
disconnect.